am back 2 weeks in a row now doing another review. Last review of May, but don't let that be an offset or anything because June is going to have an amazing, absolutely amazing month for movies. Just as good, if not better, than March had as far as a continuous splurge, as you would, of movies. So, but this review went to go see Solo, Star Wars. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. It looks like my thing's out of focus. But I went to go see Star Wars. Took my wife. We are both obviously huge Star Wars fans, as most of you may know. And if you don't, now you do. Solo, A Star Wars Story, is the second movie in the Star Wars story saga that they started with Rogue One, which I reviewed as one of my very first reviews. Might have been even my first review I did for Spaniard Reviews, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's a little weird because we're so used to Star Wars movies being in that trifecta, right? That series and out of order in a sense, and we're expected of a continuation or as said as a trilogy, and these stories are supposed to expand the universe that we already know and get involved with some new characters. With Solo, A Star Wars Story, I felt it was a very bold move to go for one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars as a whole, next to obviously Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. They chose to go with Han Solo, and let's just start off from the back. The story. The story is pretty basic. It's obviously starting off with a young Han Solo and how he became a smuggler. And I thought for a beginning, it starts off pretty well. It's fast. It gets right into the action. You get to see Han from the very beginning, so there's no kind of, play around and, see other characters, and then he miraculously comes in. He's the first person that you see in the movie, and it's great. It's great because you get to see him, you get to see all the action. But then again, I feel like that's where this movie also faults because Han Solo is that type of icon that a lot of people, and especially someone like myself, Star Wars fans, are gonna look into as far as a character, and the story around Han Solo for the entirety of this movie is pretty much the premise where he is trying to get rich fast so he can get his own ship and go back to his home planet. Sort of like a rescue mission or a promise, as it were. And come to find out, the team that he ends up becoming friends with and smuggling with, there is a lot of connections. He ends up meeting a lot of new people. And that's where I feel like the story actually gets better, is when the other characters actually get involved. And that's when I knew that the movie was going to suffer throughout. But I do have to say, once it gets towards the end, it does get better. The movie doesn't hit this point where it's like, oh, and then it kind of drops. It gradually increases. And once it hits that climax point, it just gets better and better, especially once the whole group that is assembled come together and they go on their mission and their quests and their type of smuggling run that they have to do for this pretty much like a mob boss, and it turns out really well afterwards. But getting now into the acting and the characters, Alden Ehrenreich, okay? I applaud him. I really do, because you can tell that he tried very hard playing Han Solo, but not just playing Han Solo, playing Han Solo the way that Harrison Ford became Han Solo, right? Because there is a difference when actors act; you just kind of see it, right? But then there are actors who become characters, and they just carry it so well that they don't even have to act because it's a part of them. And Harrison Ford had that with Han Solo. And you can tell he tried. Eldon tried so hard. So I really applaud him, but I'm sorry he's just not Han Solo. The other characters, however, in particular, Danny Glover is amazing as Lando. I really enjoyed his performance. It was very good. I felt like he did his homework, and I mean, let's just face it, Danny Glover is all around a very amazing actor and director and writer and so forth. So he puts a lot of work into it. Woody Harrelson, I love Woody Harrelson. He's in so many movies nowadays and he plays like this very iconic role when he does, but man, the guy has just such a presence when he's there. I loved him in the Planet of the Apes series when he played in the third movie. Absolutely loved him in the Hunger Games series. Like, he is just an amazing actor, and his role here is phenomenal. I really enjoyed every time Woody Harrelson was on screen. So there is this new character, as some of you can see right here, if you guys are watching the video review. Her name is Kira in the movie, and this is played by Emilia Clarke. And I know I've seen her in some part. My wife was very, very happy because she said she was in a few movies that she really enjoyed. So she loved her performance. And man, she brought a very passionate and just such a love to her character that every time that character appeared on screen, you couldn't help but just love the lines that came up or how it goes by. There are some other characters that I don't want to go into just for spoiler reasons. I may get into it for my geek out moment afterwards, but overall, I felt like the performances by all the other characters and all the other actors definitely outshined Han Solo. And let's face it, it is a solo movie. So that was a bit drowning for me. But the good news is, as far as the score goes and the music, it's very spot on for Star Wars. Now, there is a bit more, I feel, dramatic sorrow and sometimes, which, you know, I'm a huge fan of, epicness. So I'm going to play you a piece, as I always do, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, yeah, it's pretty epic, and there are some parts where you hear the original scores from Star Wars that you know and love, especially when something amazing happens, and it just turns out so beautifully. Overall, as a whole, I really did enjoy the movie, and for me, going into the movie, not that I had low expectations, but for me, what I wanted from this movie as a Star Wars story movie is I just wanted to see Star Wars stuff. You know, I want to see um, laser battles. I want to see less CGI and more animatronics, which they did have a fair amount of animatronics in here, but also a fair amount of CGI. But I think it balances out well compared to the you know, the first three movies. Hate bringing that up, but it's true. But overall, I feel what actually could have saved this movie is a few things. One, not have Han Solo. I'm sorry, but the character is just so well performed. It's a hard character for someone else to take on. However, as I said, I think Eldon Ehrenreich did a very good job trying, but it just didn't fit. This movie actually would have been absolutely amazing if it was just a Star Wars story movie called Smugglers, right? And they could have had a cameo of Han Solo in there because obviously he is one of the, if not the most notorious one. But to have him on screen so much and for it to not feel like Han, I felt like definitely hurt the soul of a Star Wars story called Solo, right? But a Smugglers movie, it definitely could have been done very, very well, I feel. And they could have had this great cast of characters and had a bunch of other characters into it, and maybe even brought in Jabba the Hutt and some other well-known characters. And we do have news of more Star Wars stories coming up, which I'm really excited about, and we'll share that on our Geek Out podcast. But for me, this movie, Solo for Star Wars Story, is going to get 3 out of 4 stars. Very good movie overall. I just feel the whole big piece of it fell short, very short. But overall, if I took that piece out and just kind of laid back and just sit and enjoy a movie filled with action, humor, and just overall love as far as a Star Wars fan, truly enjoyed it. So I highly recommend seeing it. Just without any spoilers, just go into it just thinking, like, this is not Harrison Ford. So it's going to be Han Solo, the character, but it's just a different Han. It's not the same that we're used to seeing. So thank you all so much. I really do appreciate the views. Please like my Facebook, and if you love this on YouTube, please subscribe. For those listening onto the podcast version, I really appreciate you favoriting the podcast on the Anchor app, and we'll go from there. If you don't want to hear my geek out moment or any spoilers, you can end it here, and I appreciate it so much. So now getting to the geek out moment, okay? There were a lot of actually cool parts in this movie. I really enjoyed it. It definitely had its action heavy moments, but it wasn't too overdone to where you felt like, well, I need a little bit more Star Wars stuff in there. So, but my favorite part is how they use the Millennium Falcon, right? There's this part where they're trying to get through this storm area, and I forget what planet or where it's from, but Han actually gets the pilot. And I felt like this was the actual time, or maybe only time throughout the entire film. I felt like it felt like Han, with the laughter and the smuck attitude and the very like confident snobby comments. It fit very well with everything that was going on throughout this whole scene. There is this TIE fighter group, right, that's chasing him through this field, and it almost becomes like this very stormy galactic asteroid field that they're going to, and Han is so confident that he can get them in while they're trying to find a navigation through there. And there's just so many cool parts of where he finally gets to pilot the Millennium Falcon, where he's using the Millennium Falcon to spin around, and then the classic, the Millennium Falcon flies on its side, it goes through narrow areas. So I totally geeked out. It was really cool to see, and it made me feel really good. I was smiling throughout that entire scene. It was really, really well done. That was my favorite part out of the entire movie, and I was hoping for a little bit more. But as I said, the movie does hit like a peak point, and then it does end up rising towards the very end. So I would say just be a little bit patient with the movie, and you will really enjoy it. Just try not to expect too much for a Han Solo character. But again, thank you all so much. I really do appreciate the views. If you are a viewer of our podcast, or listener to our podcast, I should say, we are going to have our 5th episode on Monday, so that's going to be awesome. And we have a lot to talk about. And hint, hint, wink, wink, we have some Star Wars stuff to possibly talk about. So really appreciate it if you could check it out. It is called the Geek Out Podcast. I will have it linked in the description here. So thank you all so much. You enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next week. Take it easy.